Hello and welcome to this interview of Career Bites 2025, brought to you by the UP School of Economics Student Council. I'm Barbie from Batch 2026, and here with us today is Sir Adrian Glova to share his personal journey in data science. So, to begin, sir, can you tell us about your time in UPSE when you were getting your bachelor's?
Right. I was a part of Batch 2012. I graduated in 2016. I took up BS Economics. And like you guys, I was even part of the student council nung fourth year. In my last year, I was the Sports, Arts, and Culture Counselor. I'm not sure if that position still exists. And I was also part of ECOSOC and ETC during my undergrad days. So I was a bit of all over the place at that time. It was a good time, yeah.
So, what was your fondest memory, sir, as an UPSA student? Is it the orgs? Is it the profs?
Right, so I was thinking about that, and it's been a while. It's been a decade, so I decided to divide it into two.
What's the most iconic part that you
Right,
remember?
right. So I couldn't choose one. So pumili ako ng isa na ACAD side and non-ACAD side because, you know, wala naman kayong magagawa if I choose to. Just kidding. So on the ACAD side, it was taking this class, Econ 198 on impact evaluation. At that time, it was under Professor Dokoy Capuno. He's now on secondment as a USEC at NEDA, but he's a full professor in UPSE. So impact evaluation is about isolating the effect of an intervention. And I took that in 2015, but that informed my research interests. So up to now, that's one thing that I'm trying to get into. I'm trying to be an expert at. So I wouldn't have been able to learn about that if it weren't for my undergraduate experience. And on the non-ACAD side, at that time, we were playing a lot of basketball and we would always be competing. We would always be in the Final Fours at Diliman Games. So that was a fun time. Yeah, so basically, those two things. Medyo polar opposites siya.
Yes, sir. So, during that time, sir, did you know you were gonna go into data science na? Or was it like a late realization?
Well, at that time, I didn't know the specific field that I would get into. So to answer the question, no. Hindi ko alam that I would go particularly in this field. But what I knew, I graduated at 20 years old. Wala pa kaming K-12 noon. All I knew was I was interested to apply myself. Like, I want mentally stimulating challenges, basically. I wanted to apply myself and I wanted to go into a domain that would be useful to people. So, I only realized that I wanted to go into data science after my first job. So yung first job ko, I was with a Professor Emeritus of UPSE also, si Dr. Ben Jokno. You guys probably have heard about him as BSP Governor or Finance Secretary or DBM Secretary, but he was a prof. He was teaching Econ 151 in the past. So after my first job, I had a lot of interesting questions in mind, but I felt that I didn't have the tools to answer these questions. And that's why I went into data science. Yeah.
So, sir, speaking of not having the tools, would you say UPSE prepared you for your current career? Or was it something that you had to start from zero pa ulit?
Right. So, that's a good question. Let me break that down. UPSE allowed me to think of the interesting questions that I wanted to answer. Now, the technical tools, it's a separate question. So yung technical tools, I honestly learned it in other places. So I took an MS Statistics at the UP School of Stat, where I am now assistant professor. And I'm also currently taking a graduate degree at the London School of Economics on statistics and machine learning rin. So UPSE taught me or revealed to me the interesting things to ask. Because I think some people have the tools, but they don't know where to apply the tools. They don't know what interesting questions to pose, basically. So that's what I would give credit to UPSE. It really revealed to me the things I wanted to work on. Now the tools, I picked it up elsewhere, as I've discussed. Yeah.
So speaking of wanting to answer interesting questions through data science. How would you describe your current role and which questions are you trying to answer now?
Right. So I would describe myself as an econometrician and data scientist. So let me break that down. It sounds like a buzzword. So when we say econometrician, we use statistical tools to shed light on economic phenomena. So that's what sets it apart from statistics alone, kasi we still deal with economic phenomena. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm very big into causal inference. Like, let's say the government has a project to raise the incomes of people. I use data and modeling to answer the question, is it true that the program increased the incomes of people, or is it because of other factors? So that's the econometric side of things, but I also do a lot of data science, meaning to say not involving economics or finance. So it's just raw modeling and mining insights from the data. So yeah, that's mostly what I do.
Yes, sir. So you're working, you're studying, you're also teaching sa stat dati. What does a typical week look like for you?
Right. So admittedly, I wear many hats, as you mentioned. I'm in academia as an assistant professor. So as you guys know, a professor in UP is tasked to teach, tasked to publish and conduct research. Every once in a while, we're also doing serving as resource persons to workshops, to seminars, or consultants to government agencies. So that occupies a huge part of my week. And then I'm also running like a boutique consulting company on data analytics. So there's also a lot of meetings with clients and stakeholders, trying to convince them that utilizing data science will be of value to their organization. So that's what a week is like. It's a lot of studying, reading, and meeting people. Yeah. Siguro the only unique feature is when we talk about reading and studying, it involves a lot of math and a lot of code. Yeah, maybe other people would be reading. If you're a lawyer, you read cases. Maybe you read the newspaper. Sa amin lang, it's more quantitative, I guess.
Yes, sir. So I'm assuming there's limited time for basketball na ngayon.
Yeah, I haven't picked up an orange ball in a while, especially here in the UK.
Ayos.
Pag winter lalo, yeah. So I can't, but I do miss those times.
So you were talking about tools po kanina. What specific hard skills are necessary for your work in data science and econometrics?
Right. So let me divide that into two to be because both are very crucial. Number one, you need the theoretical knowledge. When I say theoretical knowledge, it means the mathematical and statistical competencies. So let's be even more specific. When I say math, you need to learn calculus and linear algebra because a lot of the modeling involves optimization. And when we say optimization, it's finding the best value subject to some constraint, sabihin natin. So calculus, optimization, and linear algebra are crucial in understanding the models. And then you also have to learn statistics in terms of theory. That is probability theory. The Econ 131 is the closest one in UPSE. And probability and inference. I think you also have Econ 132 and 138 in this current curriculum. So that's the first pillar, is the theoretical understanding of these things. Now, number two is the coding. Because at the end of the day, you have to implement these models and algorithms. The equations will not run themselves, right? So you have to be able to deploy it or implement it. And we do that with computers. So you tell the computer what to run. So they're like an interplay between these two pillars, the coding and the theoretical knowledge. So those are the hard skills that are crucial in this field. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I just want to share that my members here are all freshmen, so hopefully this inspires them and everyone else from the younger batches to study math harder if they want to go to data science.
Yeah, it's very useful, believe me.
Yes, it's not just the stat classes. So what about soft skills, sir? Is it a very collaborative work? What other soft skills is needed to be a good data scientist?
That's a good question because I believe isa yan sa weaknesses of many data scientists. I think they're too caught up sometimes with the numbers and the models that they forget that the models are to help other people make decisions. So you have to be good at communicating your results. You have to speak the language of your client or your stakeholder. No one cares if you reduce the forecast error by some percentage. The executive cares about their bottom line. Sabihin natin, did you drive revenue? Did you cut costs? In the public sector, were you able to better target the poor with your model? So I think communication skills are very important. To think in terms of math, but to speak in terms of business or governance. So that's the most important soft skill that I would say. And also, as you mentioned, yung collaboration and working as a team. So when you have big projects, a single person cannot accomplish everything. Diba? Think of the recommender system of Netflix. When you click this video, it recommends another video because you've watched all of these videos. That's a huge project. It's a huge undertaking, and it requires being able to deal with different personalities and different people.
So I'll just circle back to your time after UPSA. What qualifications are necessary for your work? Because do you have to be a stat major or stat MA? Are there other things you need to study?
Right. So, first of all, iba't ibang flavor kasi yung data science. There are so let me give like 3 broad emphasis of different data scientists. Number 1 is the more theoretical data scientists. So these people probably come from physics or computer science or statistics or mathematics. So they have a better understanding of the theoretical underpinnings of the models. That's more on the research side of things. So I'm trying to go there because I'm trying to conduct research. And that's also the reason why I took extra trainings at statistics departments. Now, there are people who are more on the deployment and the application side of things. So yung mga taong yun, they're more focused on the coding. So they know enough theory, but they're very good at making dashboards, implementing the algorithm. So they know multiple programming languages. And then the third one is meron ring domain expertise. I think that's where the UPSE people can come in, because if you have an understanding of the phenomenon you're trying to model, and then you know enough data tools, then nagfo-focus ka dun sa niche mo, and you just apply these tools to that particular sector, whether it's healthcare, finance. So it depends kung saan ka maglalaro, but these 3 things: domain knowledge, the theory, and the coding. These are the most important things, I would say.
Thank you, sir. So I'm curious, because you're working at a firm, but you're also working in stat. So why did you choose to work in those places?
I value autonomy a lot. That's number 1. When I say autonomy, it's independence of thought. So meron akong particular research interests, and I really want to answer these questions. That's the reason why I started my boutique consulting company, and that's the reason why I'm in academia. Because I don't think you could do that in other sectors. Of course, in other industries, you have a boss, you have a deadline. That the company has its own set of goals, and the company's goals might not be your goals, right? If you're closing the books at the end of Q1, that's the company's goal. You shouldn't be thinking about some abstract question, right? So I think that's the first reason. I really value autonomy. I want to work on certain problems, and I want to learn certain tools. And 2, I think yung thirst for knowledge and curiosity is rewarded in these fields. So I don't really want a monotonous job where, I mean, some people want that maybe, kabisado na nila, and then they don't have to, exert themselves too much. But I want a new challenge every now and then. So that explains why I'm in this field, I guess.
But a lot of students do wonder about the culture in data science firms, or even as a UP professor. So how would you describe what it's like working for those organizations?
Right. So let me preface my answer by saying the work culture is also dependent on the company. That's number 1. Certain sectors might be more conservative. Example, you're a regulator. You probably don't want to be messing around and trying out new things because you will damage a lot of things, a lot of goods or services or ecosystems if you mess around. On the other hand, if you're in a startup, maybe mas agile, mas fast-paced yung buhay doon. So that's the firm-to-firm variation. Now, specific to the industry, I'd say that yung mga fields like data science and machine learning, they're fast-paced because they're fairly new, especially in the Philippines. So ang daming na-discover na bagong developments. ChatGPT is one, machine learning and deep learning have siguro last decade lang naging known yun sa Pilipinas. So it's a very dynamic environment. You have to teach yourself a lot of things. A lot of these things wouldn't be taught in school because a lot of these things didn't exist yet when we were in school, right? Wala pang data science or machine learning when I was in undergrad. So it requires a lot of discipline, and you gotta love that challenge of learning and thinking on your feet.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for talking to us about your career. So I'll just circle back to how you got here. What job did you get right after UPSA, and what higher education did you pursue?
Right. So my career path has really been linked to UPSA because when I graduated in 2016, the national elections just finished then, May 2016. We graduated June 2016. And at that time, si Professor Ben Jokno was appointed Budget and Management Secretary. Again, he's a prof in our school. And he was looking for staffers. And I just happened to graduate at that time, a few months back. And he took me in. So for 3.5 years, I was with Sec Ben. And that's yun yung nakwento ko kanina na it's in that job that I started to think about many questions that I wanted to address. Like things like, why is government so inefficient in its spending and its budgeting, sabihin natin? Or what are the factors that affect social mobility in the Philippines? Is it enough to graduate from a good university with a certain degree program? And dun sa first job na yun, dun ko rin na-realize that these are a lot of interesting and relevant questions, but wala akong like necessary tools to address them. So that's when I decided to pursue graduate studies. So pumunta ako sa kapitbahay natin sa School of Stat because I really wanted to focus on the methodology. And yeah, here I am also furthering my training sa London School of Economics. So that's my career in a nutshell. I also worked for the Bangko Sentral pala for a little bit, dealing with the similar sa trabaho ko sa DBM, but now I'm with UP Diliman.
So you mentioned that you're in data science because you had interesting questions that you want to answer. But even before you figured out those questions, were you interested in data science na, or did you have a coding background when you entered UPSA?
I think bata pa lang ako, like even before high school, I liked abstract things. I like rigorous thinking, like scenario analysis, like thinking of edge cases, like violations to sweeping statements. Sabihin natin, parang, oh, all people are like this. Or what if some people are like this? So I was like growing up, parang philosopher ba. Like I liked mga ganung mga line of reasoning. So I thought in terms of rules, parang ganon, if-then statements. And I guess that way of approaching things, that personality is conducive to learning code. Code is basically telling the computer what to do, which is based on like rules, right? And also conducive rin siguro yung ganong disposition to learning the math behind all of these models and algorithms. So independent of being exposed to societal questions that I wanted to parang dabble into, I guess personality-wise, medyo disposition ko is towards these things na rin. Yeah.
So what do you like most about data science? Is it abstract thinking or something else?
Right, I find it exciting kasi it requires rigor. That's number one. So nabanggit ko, I like applying myself mentally. So imagine you have a lot of people with a lot of characteristics, and you want to, let's say you're a bank and you want to identify sino ba yung worth it bentahan ng insurance, sabihin natin. Like I like that. I like breaking down a problem and using data to serve as evidence to support my arguments. So the rigor and the mental challenge is something that I enjoy. And number two, I also like that it's very useful. Kasi data science is basically using data to help people make better decisions. We need that everywhere. You need that in healthcare, you need that in finance, marketing, logistics, public, private, NGO, academia. So pakiramdam ko, this field is like widely applicable. It could help a lot of people because everyone has to make decisions, right? So I guess those things swayed me that way.
Here. So now I'd like to hear what's the hardest part of being in data science naman?
Right. So admittedly, I'd say that being a data scientist has a higher, it has high barriers to entry, sabihin natin, in economic terms. Because it demands multiple competencies. So, kailangan marunong ka mag-code. That's one example. You can know all the math. If you cannot implement it, it's useless. Especially when you're working with big data. Example, you work for a telco, you work for a bank. You can know all the abstract models, but you gotta implement it. You gotta have something to show for it, right? So it's tough. Yeah, many people learn coding by themselves. I learned code by myself. And then you also have to have the mathematical background to understand these models. Because, sure, pwede ka mag-implement ng model, but you also have to know the underpinnings of it. Kailan ba siya useful? What are the assumptions when the model will be applicable? If the assumptions are violated, what can I do to remedy it? What are the potential pitfalls or when would this model not perform well? So kailangan mo rin ng theoretical background doon. And the soft skills too, you have to be able to communicate with people. Like you think in terms of numbers and code, but you communicate in terms of business value or kung sino man yung client mo. So I think it is tough because you feel like you have to keep up in many fronts. But that makes it exciting as well. Yeah.
That being said, what kind of person would you say will thrive sa data science?
Right. So if you're a person who likes a fast-paced environment, kasi nga this is a relatively new field, particularly in the Philippines. So maraming new developments like ChatGPT, deep learning. The languages change from time to time. For instance, when I was in undergrad, a lot of the analysis was being done in Stata or SAS or eViews. Now it's mostly R or Python. So if you like that environment where it's fast-paced, it's challenging, then you would enjoy data science. Yeah.
So for the students who are still in econ but they want to enter data science, what would you say are important? Do they need very high grades, internships, have a leadership role in an org?
Right. So I would be very specific in my advice. You have to take the right set of classes. To be blunt, you could have the highest grades, but if they're not relevant to the field, they're close to useless. So when I say relevant, if you want to go into this field, crucial talaga yung mathematics, statistics, or even computer science if you want to take those as electives. Again, very specific subjects that I would recommend: calculus series, linear algebra, probability inference, and modeling for statistics. So because the models will always evolve, the languages will always change. As I mentioned, nung panahon ko and panahon nyo, iba yung tinuturong programming language. So what is important is you have the foundations to keep on learning. Because if you have the foundations, then you can pick up something as you go. And that's how it's been in in this domain. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So aside from taking the right step of classes, do you have any more advice to obsessed students who want to go to data science?
Right. So another one is probably to keep a portfolio of your work. So minsan kasi overwhelming, parang iniisip natin na kailangan ba alam ko na lahat to, all the math, all the stat before I'm able to enter this field. Kasi nga medyo mataas nga yung technical skills required to enter the field. Well, you could approach it like a startup, right? Like learn, make mistakes, iterate improvements. So if you check the internet, maraming tutorials, maraming YouTube videos, maraming mga replication studies. Like they provide the code, you copy paste the code, you run it in your own console, and then you learn from there. So have a bias for action is another one. To alam mo yun, like to break down the task into manageable pieces. And then over time, if you just do that, then you start to excel at it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So I'd like to ask you more questions specific to data science. Have you noticed any common misconceptions about the field?
Right. So I think ang pet peeve ko in particular would be people who think that rigor is not important. Like basta kaya mo i-code, you could just chat GPT or you could just find a tutorial. Yes, you can do that. You can get away with that at the early levels, tama? But the ceiling, the potential of your career will be determined by your theoretical knowledge. Why do I say that? Yung mga models and packages that we run, the algorithms, may person na nag-isip nun. Like the things that we apply, somebody thought of that. And somebody made the code, made it open source, so we could run it, right? So knowing the theory is important, so you know the conditions where you can apply a model, and you also know their potential drawbacks, right? And at the higher level, pwede ka rin gumawa ng sarili mong algorithm or model. Like people actually do that, right? Like companies abroad like Uber, Microsoft Research, Amazon, they actually create their own algorithms and models, and they even make it publicly available to the people. So yun yung misconception siguro, that as long as you know how to code, just chat GPT that. So you can get away with it maybe, but at some point you are gonna may cap yung growth mo.
So ChatGPT is not gonna replace all data scientists anytime soon.
I mean, it helps. It definitely helps, but you gotta know what you're doing, diba? You can't fix something that you don't understand.
Yes.
So yeah.
So speaking of, you actually need good coding skills and not just rely on ChatGPT. Are there specific programming languages that you're using in your career, or maybe when you just got started?
I deal mostly with statistical analysis kasi ang background ko is econometrics and statistics. So I use a lot of R. But in the industry, if you want to go particularly sa industry, not research, I would suggest that you learn Python more than R, because Python is more general. So R is more particular to econometrics and statistical analysis, but Python is more like general use. It's even used by engineers, software developers, diba? It could be used for dashboarding. So those two, I think, yun yung entry-level languages that you should learn to be quite confident at this field. And for the older ones, panahon ko yun eh. So I also know a little bit of eViews and Stata. May mga ganun pa rin because eViews and Stata are still used by certain legacy, yung mga may legacy infrastructure. Like, gusto nila, some companies prefer closed source software kasi mas safe. Like, mas vetted. Because open source, obviously, people can contribute, right? So ang open source, mas mabilis ang developments, pero ang closed source, you could say na mas safe. So certain public sector organizations still prefer Stata or eViews because of that closed source function. So TLDR, R Python, but depending on the company, you might learn something. You might have to learn something else. Yeah.
So how important is programming to be a data scientist? Do you have to be a master na agad, or can you survive on basic skills?
Right. So that's a good question. So the way I'll explain it, katulad rin nung pag-explain ko sa theoretical knowledge. So there are different forms of data scientists. Some people are better at theory than coding. Some people are better at coding than theory. An example would be comsci, computer science people. I think mas emphasis nila is on the computational efficiency of the algorithm, like how you deploy a machine learning model to scale, something like that. So it is important because you have to implement these things. So ang next question is it more important than theory? The answer is it depends. Kasi nga itong field na to, maraming ibang roles. There's a data scientist, there's a data engineer, and then some people call it a machine learning researcher or a machine learning engineer. So your mileage may vary. Some people deal more with code and creating data pipelines and deploying them to production. Some people naman, like me, more on the science part of things, like analyzing the data. So in my case, I believe mas important yung theory than the coding. So the coding is done to implement the theory, the model, the algo. But for some people, it might be the other way around. So it depends on the role that you want to take on. But it is important. You cannot get away na walang coding. Let's just be clear about that. Yeah.
So you mentioned that there weren't much programming classes. So UPSA at your time, how did you learn the skills that you needed for data science on your own?
Right. So when I was in undergrad, that was 2012 to 2016. I'm aging myself. Hindi pa sa Philippines, hindi pa nauuso yung data science. Wala pa, machine learning was not even like, I didn't even know of the terms data science or machine learning at that time, right? And then nabanggit ko rin that the languages that were taught to us were particular to the economics discipline, like Stata and eViews. The E in eViews stands for econometric views. So very very specific. Now, when I started working, dun pumutok yung data science and later on machine learning. So I had to learn it by myself, TLDR. Now, is that difficult? Yes. At the beginning, in the beginning, it would be difficult. But if you have the prerequisite skill set to learn how to code, then yun nga, if you think in terms of rules and you're comfortable with numbers, then you could learn it by yourself. So I watched YouTube videos. I would have projects that I would, let's say a final paper, gagawin ko siya in R to force myself to learn. And then there are online materials like R for Data Science by Hadley Wickham. That's like a Bible for intro to R. So all of these things, ang maganda naman, R and Python, they're open source. So sobrang daming materials. You could see a YouTube playlist. You could see a free Coursera course. You would have so many resources about these things. But yes, you might have to learn it by yourself. And pahabol lang, in 10 years, who knows? R and Python might not be the dominant languages. The same way that 10 years ago, people were talking of Stata and eViews, right? So, ang importante is to have the underlying skills to keep on learning. Yeah.
So for the final question, you mentioned that students can learn coding on their own, but would you say higher education is important for data science pa rin?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, bakit important yung higher education? I believe it's nice to have a mentor who knows what they're doing, right? It saves you a lot of time. So you can learn by yourself, but in my personal opinion, marami ring inefficiencies associated with self-studying. Because you waste a lot of time figuring certain things out versus, let's say, there's a syllabus na andun yung roadmap to give you the foundations. So a class will not teach you everything, but ideally, a class should teach you equip you with the foundational skill set to expand on that knowledge, right? So to me, having that guidance is very important. And more often than not, it comes from professors, or to some extent, mga workshops and trainings. So tingin ko importante siya. Can you do without it? Yeah, definitely. But you might have to work harder and admittedly, depende rin sa opinion, it's easier to self-study code than to self-study math. Like, I honestly don't know anyone who has read the textbook in math and taught themselves math. Like, well, that's pretty intense if you can do that. But to answer the question, kaya tingin ko important yung graduate education. So, kung philosopher lang tayo, technically not required if you can study all of these things by yourself. How many people can do that? So, on average, maybe take a graduate degree. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. That ends our interview. So once again, we'd like to thank you for your time and insights. I'm sure that whoever watches this will have a better idea of data science and whether or not they're ready for the rigor or they want to suffer in some other industry.
Well, I think as a parting word lang,
Yes, sir.
is it okay? Do we have time?
Yes, sir. We don't have time naman.
The parting word, I try to be very honest in this interview. I don't want to sugarcoat it and say it's easy to enter this industry.
Yeah.
So it is quite steep as far as the technical requirements. As I mentioned, you need to learn the theory, you need to learn the coding, you have to learn how to talk, to deal with stakeholders. But it is a rewarding career. And when I say rewarding, I'm not even talking about just the mental stimulation. It's also an in-demand field, right? You could go into banking, finance. So let's just say that the risk-reward ratio is pretty good. Let's just have it that way. Yeah,
Yes.
so if there's anybody out there who wants to, feel free to, the SESC can just reach out to me if people need advice or some sort. So I'm very glad that you guys are doing this. Walang ganito nung time namin. So I'm
Yes.
very happy that students now have access to this.
Sir,
So-
thank you so much.
Also, and congratulations sa ganitong event.